Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Shots on Target podcast. My name is Phil, joined by my man Jakey here.
What's good, everyone?
And today we will be talking about the Premier League rundown. Obviously, this episode is coming out after this weekend's Premier League fixtures. We're now in the international break. Absolutely terrible time to have one as usual. Just as we're getting
national breaks,
getting used to it all again. But yeah, so we're just going to be touching on the Premier League as a whole. That's all we're really going to cover in this episode, guys. We're going to keep it nice and sweet and short. So we're just going to get straight on with it. So Friday night was Luton's first game back in the Premier League at home at Kenilworth Road, re-established. Obviously taking on my Hammers. It was a weird game. Obviously, if you guys was joining us for the live stream on Twitch, it was a live watch along with me and Jakey. I went absolutely mad when West Ham scored 2 goals, as you do as a fan.
You also went mad when they conceded one.
I did. You're right. I did. I didn't see that coming either. But yeah, it was a weird game. West Ham didn't play that great, but did enough to get 3 points and get it over the line. I think the one thing I want to touch on is the ball from Paqueta for Bowen's opener. Absolutely insane pass. Another De Bruyne-esque pass from a West Ham player. Last week was Ben Rama. This week's Paqueta. I expect nothing less from Paqueta, though. He's got quality in abundance, and he's got that in his locker. Jared Bowen scoring in 3 consecutive away fixtures for West Ham for the first time in God knows how many years. I know that was something that was going round as well. So congratulations to Jared Bowen, my new Mr. West Ham. I'll have to give him. And yeah, not too much to talk about. Luton, they're going to struggle this season, as we all know. I think they gave a good account of themselves, though. They made a lot of chances. We let them easily get to our 18-yard box. But yeah, got the win over the line, and another James Ward-Prowse assist as well for the winner from Big Zoom. So yeah, not too much to talk about.
Yeah, I think Luton will cause a few teams problems this season. I think you really struggled when it came to just having possession of the ball. I think that's probably your biggest weakness at the minute. I think you really like to play off the counter.
Yeah, we're not a possession-based team at all.
But yeah, it was a grindy result. You got it over the line. I think Luton, for how much they're going to struggle this season, they did have quite a good game. They did create, and I do think they will cause quite a few teams problems this season, especially being at home. I think people always said, if they had to move stadiums, they wouldn't have the same effect as if they were playing at Kenilworth Road, and you've seen that last on Friday. You seem to really struggle for a period of time.
Definitely, and just a quick shout out to those Luton fans as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
Turning up, making the noise. Fantastic atmosphere at Kenilworth Road, as I expected to be all season. But moving on to Saturday, the early kickoff, what some people were already touting as a relegation 6-pointer between Sheffield United and Everton. Finished 2-2, I think, in the balance of things, I think a fair result from the game. Glaring weaknesses in both teams, which led to the goals. I think Sheffield United played at okay standard of football. Everton rely heavily on Beto to do things for them, to create. And he was creating, and he was making an issue for the Sheffield United defence. Again, like I say, I believe it was a relegation 6-pointer, and I think these two teams were going to be right in it come the end of the season. And I think a fair result all in all.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a very scrappy game. I think, I've heard Everton fans complaining about the referee. I don't think the referee had too bad of a game. Whether he gave, decisions one way or the other, I don't think he had control of the game. He let things flow when he needed to. But, Cameron Archer, very good goal. I think Sheffield United can maybe feel a little bit hard done by, because I think they had some very good chances. I think both teams did, but I think Sheffield United maybe had a better of the chances, and it's going to come down to taking them, because I think it's going to be a season where they have to score more than they concede if they want to stay up.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think it was a very good point for both teams. I think both teams are going to be struggling to pick up points this season. But yeah, I think it was like you said, it was a relegation 6-pointer this early in the season.
Yeah. But moving on to the 3 o'clock kickoffs now. We're going to start with Brentford versus Bournemouth. A 2-2 draw. This, for me, after watching the highlights of this game, is an absolute game of missed chances for Brentford. This should never have been a point for Bournemouth. Even though they played well, Brentford missed so many chances in this game. Absolute sitters. And Buemo had an absolute sitter in the box that he peeled wide somehow. And Bournemouth can feel very happy that they did manage to snatch a point in this one, because this should have been 3 points for Brentford for me. But again,
weren't Bournemouth winning as well?
Bournemouth were winning, yes. Bournemouth were
took
winning.
an Wembley late winner. By the way, that goal.
Yeah, it was a lovely
What
goal.
a turn!
Yeah, absolute beautiful turn from Buemo to send him away. And then he had the composure. But then if he'd have had the composure for his other chance...
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, if Brentford would have put their chances away, this could have been 4-5-1 for Brentford easily.
Yeah.
But it did end 2-2. So a good point for Bournemouth away at Brentford. Is a tough place to go. A really tough place to go. So Bournemouth will be very happy with that. Even though they were winning, it was still a very good point for Bournemouth.
I think Bournemouth won't have any worries about staying up this season. I don't think either. Well, Brentford surely won't. But I think Bournemouth, I think they'll be, round about, not mid-table, but kind of mid of the bottom half.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
14th, 13th. They'll be in around there. I don't think you have to worry.
Definitely. So moving on to Burnley versus Tottenham. This is an absolute 7-goal thriller. Tottenham again showing that Ange Ball is clearly in effect. Heung-min Son is a brand new player again. Now Kane's gone, scores a hat-trick. James Maddison looked absolute class again, pulling strings all over the pitch. I think Burnley missed a trick here though, because from watching the highlights of the game, obviously Burnley went 1-0 up in the first minute, but then they just seemed to just lose composure. I think it's just a lesson that they're going to learn, and they need to learn it fast, because they obviously tried to press Tottenham high and it worked in the first minute, which led to the opening goal. A mistake from Tottenham at the back led to the Burnley's opener. But then they just played so expansive, and the press was just half-arsed from a lot of the Burnley players, like obviously not in sync with when they want to press, when they don't, which then led to one massive ball over the top, which played in Son, who then plays it to Kulusevski, who then lays it back to Son, who dinks it over the keeper. An absolute composed finish from a guy who hadn't scored in, I think it was 9 games before then.
Yeah.
So absolutely not lacking in confidence, obviously. But yeah, it was just a bit naive from Burnley for me. And then it just continued in that aspect. They still tried to press. Tottenham just played it round them. James Maddison was pulling strings, like I say. And it led to chance after chance after chance. And Tottenham could have had 7 or 8 in this game. So it's a lesson Burnley need to learn fast, that you need to sometimes just accept what you've got and adapt to the situation and adapt to what you're playing against, because a team like Tottenham, if you're going to play that way for 90 minutes, they'll happily accept that they're going to concede 2 goals, because they will happily score 5-6.
Yeah.
Like it ended up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a season where Burnley, because obviously they've come off the back of a championship season where they've been allowed to play expansive football, and I hope they don't do what
Leeds.
Yeah, Leeds did, where the manager was too stubborn to realise, look, we're going to have to dig deep, and we're just going to have to accept maybe we're not going to go score the goals that we did last season, that we're going to have to become more defensive, more compact, and play as a unit rather than, the free-flowing, fast football that Bielsa wanted to play. I think Company maybe has a bit more of a sensible head, and he'll drill it into them players like, look, if we get a 1-goal lead, we can't be complacent, we can't, we have to just sit back, defend what we've got.
Especially when you take the lead as well.
Especially against Tottenham, who have been in such good form this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say,
a very good performance from Tottenham, and I think it's a tough lesson for Burnley.
Definitely. Well, moving on to the shock of Saturday that some people might say is Chelsea Forest.
Yeah.
Again, it's a game of missed chances for Chelsea. They dominated the ball. They moved it well, but when it comes to that final third and the chances come, no one puts the ball in the back of the net. And once again, a team punishes them for it. West Ham did it to them. Now Forest have done the exact same thing. And it's just a case of Chelsea, we spoke about this at length. They just don't have a way of... They want to play right now. And they don't have a number 9 that's going to put the ball in the back of the net. But well done to Forest. They're one of those teams that have made good signings. They're going to dig in against teams. They've got a fantastic player in Awonyi that will put the ball in the back of the net for them. And yeah, Forest are going to make things tough for a lot of teams. Forest are a team you cannot just turn up half-assed against, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on that one. It's a poor result from Chelsea and a fantastic one for Forest.
Yeah,
especially at the bridge.
I think it's more than just a poor result for Chelsea. You know, this is a Chelsea team. You know, we've alluded to it in the transfer breakdown. We alluded to it on deadline day. This is a team that since Todd Bowley took over 18 months ago, or 24 months ago now, that have spent £1 billion
in
and
3
look
years,
worse.
Yeah.
I don't get how you can spend that much money and look a worse team for it.
Yeah.
Caicedo at fault for for the only goal. You know, ball comes into him, it's a heavy touch that he just doesn't chase, and then when the player gets past him, he doesn't really make an effort to get back. He just kind of seems to jog and try and just thinks, I'll let the defenders do that, like, cover for me. And it's a brilliant finish by Alanya. It's very composed.
Yeah.
They could have then gone 2-0 up, or they could have gone 1-0 up earlier through Alanga again, taking it from cutting it off the left, and got very unlucky. And then, like you say, it's a game of missed chances for Chelsea. They have that fucking blinding effort, I think it was late into the first half, where the ball bounces. Nicholas Jackson has a goal to essentially just tap it into.
Yeah, and he stretches.
And he somehow manages to chip it over the bar from about 9 yards out.
Yeah, I don't understand why he's stretching in that situation. A composed
He's quick
striker,
enough to get there.
Yeah, a composed striker will just stand up and just knock it in. That's just lack of confidence right there. That's a panic, like, I have to put the ball in the back of the net now. Like,
but again, it's an awful result for Chelsea. I think it's much worse than people might allude to. And I have a big question to ask, and I don't know. I seen it on another podcast talking about Pochettino.
Yeah.
Is he maybe the right man for the job, considering, you know, he struggled with a PSG team that had some of the best footballers in the world. And he's come into a team that really needs a rebuild and needs a team that still has some resemblance of ego inside of it.
I think he is the right man for the job, but only if he is allowed to actually do his job. I've alluded to it before that Todd Bowley runs every aspect of Chelsea, and that's just the wrong way to go about it. The chairman is the chairman. You put the money in, but you've employed this manager, so that means you trust him to do his job. Let him do his job. Let him bring in the players that he wants to bring in. Let him allow to be able to say no to you. You might fund the club, Todd Bowley, but at the end of the day, the manager is the manager, and he has the last say. It's his job on the line, not yours, at the end of the day, and he wants to see success in these players.
Yeah.
So yes, I do believe Pochettino is the right man for the job if he's allowed to do his fucking job.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, because Pochettino is a good manager. We've seen it at Tottenham. Yes, he struggled at PSG. It didn't quite work out for him, but I do believe in the Premier League, if he's given the freedom to do what he wants to do, because I guarantee you he wouldn't have made half the signings that they have done. They're not Pochettino signings. So yeah, I generally believe he is the right man for the job. I just think he needs to be just left alone and let him do his fucking job.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought I'd just ask the question. I seen it and I wanted to get your 2 cents on it. But
absolutely.
Yeah, great result for Forest. A very well deserved 3 points, and abysmal for Chelsea.
Yeah,
Simple as that. But we'll move on.
Yeah, so the last 3 o'clock kickoff, Man City versus Fulham. Now, if you look at the scoreline of this and you hadn't seen anything else about the game, you would not believe that this was a controversial fixture. Um, because obviously everyone's seen it now. Probably one of the most controversial decisions of the weekend. Believe it was the goal for City to go 2-1 up through Nathan Ake.
Yep.
Obviously, corner comes in, he heads it down. And clearly there is an obstruction from Akanji. Yeah, it was Akanji. That was it. Yeah, he's clearly obstructing the keeper. He even moves his leg. He's clearly in play. He's standing in a clear offside position. It went to VAR, and VAR got it absolutely wrong. If you're a Fulham fan, unfortunately, in this situation, although it may or may not have changed the result, because obviously
that changes the game though. Them going 2-1 up.
It does. It's right on. I believe it's right on the stroke of half time, isn't it? Yeah, the 50th, basically the 50th minute in the game, 45 plus 5, right at the stroke of half time. So it completely changes the manager's team talk. And yeah, it's just a poor decision. There's not much to talk about it. I don't want to keep going on this podcast and slating these referees like this, but when they leave it this blatant, like there's some you can understand, and it's like some refs will give it, some refs won't. Like I didn't even touch on the Ward-Prowse handball in the West Ham game.
Yeah.
Some refs will give it, some refs won't. But this one is so clear and obvious that VAR need to give their heads a fucking wobble. I'm sorry, it's just that bad at the minute. I don't usually go in on refs like that, but when I saw that one, that's just too clear. Like I don't even know how VAR can look at that and give an honest reason why you would allow that to be a goal.
I am going to call it now. Mic the referees up. Let us hear what goes on at Stockley Park.
Yeah.
Let the fans see how they conduct themselves, because we see it in other leagues. I think the Australian league does it very well.
The Women's World Cup used it a bit as well. Not so much what VAR was saying, but obviously what the decision was and why for as well. She even explained herself. So, yeah, even just something like that.
Or interview the referees and let us hear their insight on the decision, why they decided to rule it that way. And
I don't think the rest will ever do interviews.
They won't.
Not a chance.
Of course they won't.
Not a chance. But anyway, moving on from the controversial point of view, really unfortunate for Fulham, but it still doesn't take away the fact that Man City stuck 5 past you, and Erling Haaland is back with a hat-trick.
Yeah.
The machine is back. He had a few games off. He was just taking it easy, chilling, let everyone else get in on the act, have a bit of fun. But now he's right back in it. Hat-trick for Erling Haaland. Fantasy players will finally be happy, because I'm sure everyone and their nan will have him captained in their fantasy team. So happy days on that aspect. But yeah, nice and straightforward for City in the end after that controversial moment. And a nice easy win for Man City, and Fulham gets back down to earth after a fantastic point against Arsenal last week. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Not really. I think like you say, a great performance from City. You know, Fulham I think can feel a bit hard done by with that decision, because it completely changes the game, regardless of who the opponent, the opposition is. If that happens to any team, it changes the game.
Yeah.
I don't think Fulham played too badly up until that, but I think you can clearly see that's where their heads kind of dropped, because they're not just facing 11 men, they're facing 12. In their mind, they're also facing VAR and the referee.
It can feel like that as a footballer. It can feel like that.
I feel for Fulham in that sense, because it is offside. It shouldn't be given. Haaland even comes out after the game and says, like, look, yes, offside. That goal shouldn't stand. And I do respect him for that decision, because I don't know why more footballers just can't come out and be that clear cut.
Yeah, it is unfortunate from a Fulham perspective. Like you say, it does change not only a team's mindset, but the players' mindsets as well. I used to play football. I've been in that situation before, where you feel like the ref's against you. No matter what you do, you're playing against 12 men. Obviously, me playing amateur football, you get all sorts of referees that just don't care. But this is obviously Premier League football, so they should just do better. Simple
Yeah.
as, just do fucking better.
There
Simple
should be
as.
clarity on these decisions.
Yeah,
We
there
shouldn't
should
have to
be.
go into a game confused about who the referees are going to favour this game, or whether they're going to get the decision fucking right to begin with.
Definitely.
But we'll move on. It seems to be every episode we've ranted about some decision because it's a joke. It's the best league in the world with some of the worst officials.
Yeah, unfortunately so. But like you say, we'll move on. So the final game was Saturday, the evening kickoff, Brighton versus Newcastle.
What a result.
And this is for me where Brighton absolutely stamped their authority on not only Newcastle but the Premier League. It's like, right, we're here to play now. Obviously, they got a poor result last week against us in terms of for what they was expecting. But like I said last week on the podcast, they still could have had 7-8 goals that day. So their performance hasn't dropped whatsoever. Evan Ferguson makes a name for himself. Obviously, we knew about him. He not really scored too many goals for Brighton, but he announced his name worldwide on Saturday evening with a hat-trick.
18-year-old as well.
Yeah, 18 years old. For me, it was just a case of Brighton absolutely dominating. I think it took Newcastle until the 85th minute to record a shot on target. That is bad. I don't know what is actually going on at Newcastle. Whether or not that they've got their eyes set on the Champions League or what. Don't get me wrong, they've got talent in their ranks, Newcastle. But just from watching that game on Saturday, the only person who looked like doing anything was Alexander Isak. And then when you're 2-0 down, you take Alexander Isak off to bring on Harvey Barnes. For me, it's a no-brainer. They obviously brought Callum Wilson on as well to partner him. Take off one of your centre midfielders and then bring on Harvey Barnes and keep Isak on, the one player who looks like doing something for Newcastle. But nonetheless, that's just my perspective of it. But nonetheless, it was a fantastic performance from Brighton. A well deserved 3 points, and like I said, Evan Ferguson, welcome.
Yeah, I think that shows maybe a slight bit of naivety from Eddie Howe, because this is the second time where his substitutes haven't really made sense.
Yeah.
You look at the Newcastle game against Off, they're winning the game up until the 81st minute, and the game changes when they take Sandro Tonali off, who was their best player, and Anthony Gordon off, who was their best player. Like, they took their two best players off.
Yeah.
And I think that it just shows maybe a hint of naivety from Eddie Howe, and maybe a weakness of his is not knowing really who his best players to bring on are when the game's not going his way.
Possibly, very much possibly.
But like, nothing to take away from Brighton. Evan Ferguson, like you say, announces himself. He's going to be a player that we look to in 3 years' time that's gone for 100 million again, and Brighton are laughing.
Yeah, pretty much, and then they'll bring in the next one.
And, like you say, they'll bring in the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and Brighton are just such a well-oiled
machine,
well-oiled team, and such a
well-oiled machine. Honestly,
yeah. That they've run perfectly from top to bottom. The owners understand it, the manager understands it, all the backroom staff understand it, and it goes right through the court to even the under-18s.
Yeah, it does.
Like, it's such a well-run club.
Great philosophy at Brighton.
Yeah, 100%. But I think, is this a sign of Newcastle's woes like coming through? Was last season maybe a bit of a fluke getting top four? And is it going to come back to bite them in the arse when the fixture congestion hits? Because Eddie Howe's going to have to find a way to rotate that team with really a backup squad that doesn't look like it's very good.
Yeah, obviously that remains to be seen, but that will be the worry for some Newcastle fans. I think in terms of Newcastle, I still think they're going to have a good season, but I don't think it's going to be quite as good as everyone makes it out to be.
Yeah.
I think the Champions League will be a big, not even a hindrance to them, because they're going to have such great times and such great exposure for Newcastle, such great nights heading to Milan and filling St James's Park under the lights. But still, obviously, not the start Newcastle wanted.
No,
Heading
no.
into European football, but still plenty of time to go.
Lost 3 out of the first 4 games.
Yeah, but they also absolutely destroyed Villa, and we were talking about it in a completely different light. So
yeah, that is true.
There's always a team there for sure.
Yeah, but we'll move on to the Sunday fixtures now.
Yes, so we will start off with a 5-goal thriller in the Crystal Palace Wolves game. This was an interesting one for me. I fancied Palace to win it, which they did, but I didn't think it was
easy.
Yeah, again, it's one of those where kind of like Sheffield United, Everton, but just with a bit more quality. Because, like we say, there is quality in Palace and there is also quality at Wolves, to an extent still, and it showed with a 5-goal thriller. I think if it would have ended as a draw, both teams probably would have accepted it. I think Palace might have shaded it as the better team in terms of the chances they created, but I think all in all, it's probably I think it's a fair result. But I think even if it was a draw, that would have also been a fair result, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The weird thing is, right, we allude to this in the transfer talk that you'll see next week, but Wolves are such a weird team because they've not really signed well, and they don't really, like, they've got some good players, obviously, they've got class in that team, but they still seem to be performing well. They don't look to be a team that have lost some of their key players.
Yeah.
They just need that. They need to be a bit more secure in defence. They need to not obviously leak as many goals, but that's always going to be hard when you're going away to Palace. But I don't like they're a weird team because they're still playing well. They're still putting up performances that you'd expect of them as of a team that hadn't lost all their key players.
Yeah.
It's such a weird one.
It is. It's a weird one for sure.
But great result for Palace. I think Wolves may feel a bit hard done by like dropping all 3 points rather than coming away with 1. But yeah, great performance from Edouard, key player for Palace this weekend.
I think he'll be big for him all season.
Yeah, I think this is probably his time where he cements himself as like the striker they wanted when they signed him from Celtic.
Yeah, definitely.
But we'll move on to the last of the Sunday. Oh no, the second of the Sunday fixtures.
Yeah, so Liverpool versus Villa. Being the Liverpool fan, I will let you take it away, Jakey.
Yeah, a very. I was saying this to some of the lads who were Liverpool fans last week too. It mainly regarding Villa is I don't know where to judge them this season because they're such a good squad, but they seem to just play with a sense of I don't know whether some of the players don't really kind of pull the weight because it wasn't. We didn't really need to get out of second gear against Villa, which is weird to say. I think the early goal from Szoboszlai kind of sets the tone, and then Villa are always chasing the game. But we didn't really seem to struggle. They didn't really test the goal that much. They had that one shot that Alisson saved off the line, but I think that was their only real big chance. And yeah, it seemed to just go from the first goal. We seemed to take control of the game. Our defence played well, the midfield played well, the attack played very well. It just seemed to be a good all round performance from Liverpool.
Yeah.
Anything
else you want to
add? Nah, not really. I think I've covered pretty much everything. Szoboszlai's unreal.
Good old Shabalai.
Good old Shabalai.
Yes, so for me it's a case of, and I've alluded to this in next week's episode as well about the transfers. For me, the Premier League table lies in this aspect with Aston Villa. I still think they're a very good team. It might have just been a one-off game against Liverpool. I didn't personally watch the game, but it looked very straightforward for Liverpool. Like he says, Shabalai sets the tone, and then it's just controlled by Liverpool for the rest of the game. And it's a nice straightforward win for Liverpool. But as I say, I do believe I wouldn't be worried if I'm a Villa fan whatsoever. I still think there's absolute talent at Villa. I do believe, though, that Ollie Watkins needs to start scoring soon because you can't rely on just Moussa Diaby getting you out of trouble.
Yeah.
Although how good of a player he is, but if you can get both of them firing, that is a very scary Villa attack for sure.
That's what I kind of was alluding to with that. I don't know how to place Villa this season because they came off the back of winning, what was it, 5-0 last week?
Yeah.
And then they've come and looked like an amateur team against us. Like I don't really get like whether it's just a lack of consistency. I just don't know where to place them at the minute.
Could just be Liverpool outperforming them this weekend. Could
Yeah.
just be a shades of a team that's just better on the day. And you do get that in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But last and not least is Arsenal versus Manchester United, the big game of the weekend. Everyone was talking about beforehand, and pretty much I'm not gonna even talk about the first half. It's pretty much what you saw is what you get. It was a nothing game. It was two teams who looked just to average each other out. Arsenal dominated the game for most of it, but Man United scored against the run of play. A mistake from Kai Havertz led to Marcus Rashford getting the ball, being able to run at the defenders, and for some reason is able to cut inside on his favoured foot and put it in the bottom corner.
It's very skillful by defending, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't great, to be honest. You expect better from Ben White.
I don't think Ben White was the issue. I think it was Gabriel.
Yeah, well, Gabriel didn't help. I mean, both of them pretty much got sold and allowed him to come inside. Neither of them really looked like they were going to challenge him from the shot. But nonetheless, like I say, it wasn't too much to talk about in the first half. 1 minute later, though, Arsenal get right back on track through Martin Odegaard. Odegaard is just known for scoring in the big games for Arsenal when it's needed, and once again he does the exact same thing. And that was pretty much it for the first half, to be honest. You'd even hear it from Arsenal and Man United fans as well. I think they'll both agree that it was a nothing first half. Not really too much to talk about, but it's the second half when it really got going.
That's when it all kicked off.
Yes, that's when it all kicked off. And obviously, once again, Arsenal dominating for most of that second half, creating chances. There was a penalty call for Kai Havertz. Me personally, I do think it was a penalty. I think that even though it was minimal contact, I still think it was enough for a penalty. Not so much Wan-Bissaka, but it's I believe it was Bruno coming in from the other side. I think Casemiro. He makes enough contact for me on Kai Havertz that would send him down, because he's bursting through a gap, and when you're bursting through at pace, it only takes a slight touch to send you off balance, especially someone like Kai Havertz, who's just a lanky tit. So, for me, I believe it was personally a penalty, so I think Arsenal could feel a little bit hard done by there. But then we come to the biggest decision of them all, though. Man United going 2-1 up through Alexander Garnacho on the counter-attack, which was called offside by probably one of the smallest margins you'll see this season. I think it's generally one of those where a different angle and he's onside. In real time, he looked onside. It looked like he held his run perfectly and he was in, and it was game over for Arsenal, and they'd been shanked by Man United on the counter. But they got away with one for me. I do believe it's one of those where some people think it's offside, some people think it's onside. It's a really tough one to call. So we're not going to go too much into the VAR decision on it. I don't think the refs get anything wrong in this aspect.
No.
But obviously Arsenal get away with one. And then Arsenal obviously still pressing for that winner that obviously they need, because they still believe they're in a title challenge, so they can't let City get too far away. And who steps up but my man Declan Rice, of all people, to put the ball in the back of the net for Arsenal. It's Declan bloody Rice.
Awful defending for the goal as well. How he allowed that much time at the back post.
Yeah, it was awful defending. You can say Saliba is fouling Johnny Evans, which doesn't allow him to get the block in. Some United fans will say as well. I've seen on social media, and obviously Ten Hag also mentioned it. I don't think it's a foul at all. I think Johnny Evans just gets outstrengthed by Saliba. You're allowed to block in the box. And it's a nice finish from Rice. Obviously, at that point, all you can really do is hit the target. It obviously takes a deflection from Johnny Evans, who's trying to get a block on it, and it eludes Onana. And from at that point, the game's already won. But Man United obviously have to throw as much as they can forward in the last few minutes of added time. I think it ended up 12 minutes added on time by the end of it. But yeah, another counter-attack from Arsenal. Hey, Gabriel Jesus gets played in. Dallow's busting a gut to get back, and Gabriel Jesus absolutely sends him to Tesco's to get the shopping, and easily puts it past Onana, who's just stood there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the rundown of what happened. I think it's a deserved result for Arsenal. Don't get me wrong. I think they did deserve it on the whole balance of things. I do want to point out a couple of key aspects. One, I think wing backs for Manchester United, Dalot and Wan-Bissaka, were mustard all game. I think they were fantastic. Kept Martinelli and Saka absolutely quiet, especially Diego Dalot. I still think Wan-Bissaka one-on-one is one of the best defenders in the world. When it comes to defending, I think he is so hard to beat one-on-one. Even some of the best players we have in the Premier League struggle to do it. And obviously the debut for Rasmus Højlund for Manchester United. He looked a bit of a threat when he came on. He actually looks like what everyone was touting him as, a mini Haaland. He looks like he's going to be a pain for defenders. You'll know you've been in a game when you've played against him. And Saliba looked like he knew he'd been in the game, and he was only on for 15 minutes. So it's going to be interesting and fun to see when he gets a proper start for Manchester United, because I think that it could be the answer to Man United striker issues. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got on that.
That was a big rant.
Yeah, I do apologise.
I'll touch on a few things because I think you've covered most of it. The Havertz penalty, I don't think it's a penalty at all. I think he's the one that initiates contact. If the contact had come in, because the contact's from Wan-Bissaka, in the replay you can see he catches Wan-Bissaka's leg and he goes down. I think if that's the initial breakthrough and he goes down, it's a penalty. But I think because he's already somewhat past him, and it's a trailing leg that catches Wan-Bissaka, and then he falls over, he kind of makes VAR's mind up for them. I think it would be a soft penalty if it was given. It probably is a penalty that on another day a different referee gives.
Always going to be soft, yeah.
Because we know how inconsistent the referees are, and how inconsistent VAR is. The Garnacho offside, I think, is offside. I don't care what the margin is. I've heard from United fans online, and I've heard from kind of two types of United fans. I've heard the biased ones and the deluded ones say he's clear and obvious. He's clearly onside, which I disagree with. I don't think United were robbed in this game by any stretch of the imagination.
I don't think for that decision. I don't think it's clearly anything. I don't think it's clearly onside. I don't think it's clearly onside.
You've just said onside twice.
I said offside.
I swear you said onside twice.
No.
But I think it's offside, personally. Any margin is offside. I've heard people can say you can make the lines bigger, but either way, if it's a 1 centimetre offside, no matter how the lines are drawn, it'll be a 1 centimetre offside.
No.
And I don't think the Johnny Evans foul was a foul.
No.
For one, Saliba ends up on the floor.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can foul someone and still end up on the deck, personally, but that's just me.
That's true.
I just think it was poor defending from United for the 2 late goals. Obviously, you're pushing for the equaliser, so you can't really comment much on the third goal. It's a break. Really. It's a break from Arsenal. He's played through on goal, and he's only got Dalot and the keeper to beat, and he does that fantastically.
Oh yeah, literally perfect.
And I think it was a very well-deserved 3 points for Arsenal. I think they were in control of the game for large parts. I don't think United looked like they were really in the game, even when they went 1-0 up. I think it was very much they just wanted to out-possession Arsenal at home.
Yeah.
Because for a large portion of the first half, it was just passing from wing-back to centre-back to goalkeeper to wing-back to centre-back. And then it would get to Onana, who would fuck it 40 yards up the line.
Yeah.
So I don't think I don't think United really came to the Emirates to play football. I think they just came to frustrate Arsenal, and it didn't work. I don't think United can be too disappointed, because you're coming up against a team at their ground who have just come off the back of second, challenging the title for as long as they did last season. they're not going to be an easy team to beat, especially with their new additions. So I think it's not really a game you can really judge much off of
Yeah.
for United. I don't think the league is challenging for for top four in the league isn't won, or you don't accomplish it by beating the teams around you as much. It's more beating the teams that are below you to keep you there.
I agree.
Because you can lose to second both games but still win the league. So you have to be consistent over the season, not against the teams that are around you. I think United will be within the top six this season. I don't think there's a doubt about it.
Yeah.
Much as it pains me to say it. Yeah, I think that's me covered.
Alrighty, so that's going to do it for the Premier League rundown for this weekend's round of fixtures. We'll just take one quick look at the league table as it stands. So, Man City, cream of the crop, 4 games played, 4 wins, 12 points.
Expect nothing less from them.
Absolutely nothing less. In second place is, you could say it's joint second with Tottenham, Liverpool and West Ham, all on 10 points. Tottenham with just a better goal difference. Oh, sorry, and Arsenal. Yeah, I do apologise, Arsenal fans. Around mid-table, you've got Crystal Palace, Brentford, Forest and Villa doing okay. A couple of wins. Same with Manchester United. And then lounging down near the bottom of the table, you've got Chelsea in 12th, which is exactly where they don't want to be. Newcastle in 14th. Obviously, we're going by 4 games, so obviously don't read too much into this. And then near the bottom, you've got Sheffield United and Everton, who picked up their first points of the season, playing each other. And then still on the donut is Burnley and Luton, who have only played 3 games because obviously their fixtures against each other got postponed because of Luton's ground problems.
Yep.
And that pretty much brings us up to date as we head into the international break, guys.
Again, boo.
Yeah, boo indeed. But nonetheless, we'll still make sure we've got content for you guys. Obviously, next week we will have our transfer rundown and our grades for each team, how we think they did in the transfer window. So make sure you look out for that one. And that is going to do it, guys. Thank you so much for watching as always. Remember, if you did enjoy it, to like, comment and subscribe. We read all the comments. If you can see, we also reply to some of them as well. And yeah, that is going to do it, guys. We hope you have a fantastic week and we'll see you for the next one.
Let's catch you later, guys.
Cheers, guys.